For over a century, the Seven Kingdoms bled, not from a foreign invasion, nor from the chilling fury of winter, but from within. A wound self-inflicted, born of a king's reckless folly, a bastard's burning ambition, and a legendary sword named Blackfyre. This is the story of House Blackfyre. They were rebels, the pretenders, the dragons who dared challenge their anointed kin, fueled by potent cocktails of pride, perceived grievance, and the unwavering, intoxicating belief in their inherent right to rule. From the charismatic, almost mythical hero Daemon Blackfyre to the grotesque and terrifying Measter the monstrous, their tale is one of soaring ambition, devastating betrayal, and enduring loyalty that defied death itself, and the tragic, far-reaching consequences of a realm irrevocably divided. Join us as we unravel the intricate and bloody saga of the Blackfyre Rebellions. Our story ignites not with the clang of swords in open rebellion, but in the gilded cage of the Red Keep, years before, amid scandal and royal dysfunction. To understand Daemon Blackfyre, we must first understand his parents and the era that shaped him. His mother was Princess Daena Targaryen, later known as Daena the Defiant, daughter of a king, Aegon III, known as the Dragonbane, who oversaw the death of the last dragons, and sister to the kings Daeron I, the Young Dragon, and Baelor I, the Blessed. Daena was spirited, beautiful, and wild, a skilled horsewoman and archer. During the reign of her pious brother, King Baelor the Blessed, renowned for his fasting, prayer, and increasingly eccentric decrees, Daena and her sisters Rhaena and Elena were confined to the Maiden Vault in the Red Keep for nearly a decade, ostensibly to preserve her innocence from worldly temptations. But Daena, ever defiant, disguised herself as a servant and repeatedly escaped with her cousin, Prince Aegon, not yet king, but already infamous for his absence. This Prince Aegon, Daemon's father, was the son of King Viserys II. Viserys had effectively ruled his hand for his charismatic but reckless nephew and his pious, otherworldly brother, Baelor, proving a capable administrator, but his own reign as king was tragically short, lasting only a year. Aegon IV, by contrast, was a stark departure from his sober father and his melancholic grandfather. Aegon III, his reign beginning in 172 ACE, descended into legendary corruption, gluttony, and scandalous disregard for tradition and decency. While his true-born son and heir Daemon, born of his sister wife Nerys, was a scholar, a diplomat, and a man of peace, Aegon IV openly favored his burgeoning brood of bastards, especially those born of noble women. He lavished them with gifts, lands, and dangerous affection, deliberately sowing seeds of bitter discontent among the established nobility and, crucially, fracturing the unity of his own family. On his deathbed, in 184 AC, corpulent and rotting, Aegon IV committed his most infamous and destabilizing act. He legitimized all of his bastards, both highborn and low. This single spiteful act threw the line of succession, and indeed the future of the entire realm, into potential chaos. While the line of succession legally favored his true-born son Daemon, the legitimization gave ambitious men concrete hopes, and restless lords a powerful symbol to rally around. It was a potential chalice offered with a dying king's malicious grin. The reigns of profligate kings like Henry VIII of England, the idea of a king deliberately undermining his legitimate heir out of spite or preference has many historical parallels. His sibling spouses, cousins as lovers, open animosity. This was the Targaryen dynasty at its most dysfunction. Among Aegon the Unworthy's great bastards, those born of noble mothers, one shone with blinding, almost mythical radiance. Born in 170 AC, his mother Daena the Defiant named him Daemon, after her renowned grandfather, Prince Daemon Targaryen, the Rogue Prince, a hero of the Dance of the Dragons. This choice of name was in itself a statement, a deliberate echo of past Targaryens' glories and ambitions. Born in the Red Keep amidst the scandal of King Aegon IV and Princess Dany the Defiant Targaryen, while his father King Aegon IV did not immediately acknowledge him, Dana loudly proclaimed Aegon as the father, and Daemon's striking Valyrian features, silver gold hair and deep purple eyes, left little doubt. He was the product of two Targaryens, giving him an impeccable dragonlord lineage that some whispered was purer than that of the true-born heir, Daemon, whose mother, Queen Nerys, was often frail. He was raised amongst the other royal children and bastards, while initially in somewhat of an ambiguous position, his martial prowess quickly became apparent. He was tutored by celebrated masters at arms, including Sir Quentin Ball, known as Fireball, seeing in the boy the makings of a true warrior king. At the tender age of 12, Daemon dominated, was immensely proud. He seized the moment. He publicly acknowledged Daemon as his son, knighted him on the tourney field, and then, in a move that stunned the court and sent shockwaves through the nobility, he bestowed upon him Blackfyre, the ancestral steel sword of Aegon the Conqueror, carried by every Targaryen king since his rule. This was an unprecedented honor for a bastard, and an act laden with symbolic meaning. It was interpreted by many as Aegon IV announcing Daemon as his true and preferred successor. Following this, and likely even before Aegon IV's death, once Daemon II was king, Daemon was granted a tract of land on the Blackwater Rush, along with the right to build a castle there. This gift made him a powerful lord in his own right, with lands and incomes placing him amongst the foremost nobles of the Crown Lands, second perhaps only to the members of the royal family itself. This was a significant gesture, perhaps an attempt to integrate his charismatic half-brother firmly into the existing power structure, or to placate his ambitions. It also gave Daemon a formal seat from which to eventually take the name Blackfyre. Shortly after receiving the sword, and now a landed lord, Daemon took its name for his burgeoning house, reversing the Targaryen sigil colors to a black three-headed dragon on a red field. He married Rohan of Tyrosh, a match that brought him wealth and associate connections, and then he would go on to have 7 sons: Aegon, Aemon, Daemon the Younger, Hagen, Aenys, and 2 others whose name are lost to us. Life at court for the young Daemon, even as a favored bastard, was a labyrinth of shifting loyalties and simmering resentments. His true-born half-brother, now King Daemon II, was a man of books and diplomacy, intelligent and well-meaning, but a stark contrast to Daemon's martial glamour and warrior spirit. Initially, their relationship appears to have been cordial, if not warm, an attempt perhaps to bind this powerful popular figure to his reign through generosity rather than suppression. Did Daemon hope to make an ally of Daemon, or a strong right hand, or was it a calculated move to keep a potential rival close and contented? However, contentment was a fleeting thing in Aegon IV's brood. The court was a stage for rivalries of the great bastards. Aegor, Bittersteel Rivers, the son of Aegon IV and Barbara Bracken, was a warrior to his core, unforgiving and fiercely proud. He saw in Daemon the king that should have been, and became his unshakable shadow, his advocate and his enforcer. Then there was Brynden Bloodraven Rivers, Aegon IV's son by Melissa Blackwood, an albino, a sorcerer by reputation, and a later master of spies. Bloodraven was Bittersteel's sworn enemy. Their mothers had been bitter rivals for the king's favor, and that animosity festered in their sons, deepened by their opposing natures. Bittersteel, the blunt instrument of war, and Bloodraven, the subtle blade of intrigue. It is said of Bloodraven that he had a brother that he loved, a brother that he hated, and a woman that he desired. The hated brother was almost certainly Bittersteel, their feud legendary and personal, exasperated by their mutual desire for their beautiful, enigmatic half-sister, Shiera Seastar. But who was the brother Brynden loved? Many people believe it was Daemon. Imagine Brynden, the shunned sorcerer, the often feared albino, looking upon Daemon handsome, universally admired, the epitome of Targaryen martial grace. Perhaps Brynden felt a complex mix of admiration, familial affection, even a touch of envy. He was fiercely loyal to the legitimate line of Daemon II, a loyalty that would define his life. Yet, to be forced by duty and circumstance to eventually turn against a brother he might have genuinely loved, to be an instrument of that brother's downfall. This adds a profound layer of tragedy to Bloodraven's grim tale. Did he see the storm brewing around Daemon, fueled by Bittersteel's ambition and the whispers of discontented lords, and despair at his inability to avert it? Or was his love a buried thing? Complicating these fraternal dynamics was the matter of Daemon's sister, Princess Daenerys, not to be confused with the later Daenerys Stormborn. It's widely whispered that Daemon Blackfyre loved this Daenerys, and that she reciprocated his affections. A marriage between them might have been a powerful symbol of unity, a way to further bind Daemon to the Targaryen line. However, King Daemon II, in a move crucial for peace and unification of the realm, married Princess Daenerys to Prince Meryn Martell of Dorne in 187 AC. This marriage formally brought Dorne into the Seven Kingdoms, achieving what a century of Targaryen warfare, including Daemon I's costly invasion, had failed to do. For Daemon, it was a triumph of diplomacy, a cornerstone of his reign, but for Daemon, it was perhaps the deepest and most personal slight, to see the woman he loved given to a Dornish prince for political expediency by the very brother who also, in his eyes, held the throne that should have been his by merit, and perhaps by their father's truer wish. This likely fanned the flames of resentment, providing a potent, personal grievance that ambitious lords could exploit. While Daemon II's reign was marked by peace, prosperity, and the successful integration of Dorne, these very successes bred discontent among some. The increased Dornish influence at court, the shift away from purely martial focus, the presence of Dornish lords and ladies in positions of power, all this rankled traditionalist lords and those who felt their own influence diminishing. And in Daemon Blackfyre, they saw an alternative, a warrior king, a true Targaryen in spirit, unsullied by Dornish ties, the rightful wielder of the conqueror's sword. Whispers of Daemon II's supposed legitimacy, that he was truly the son of the virtuous Prince Aemon the Dragon Knight, not Aegon the Unworthy, persisted, further undermining Daemon in the eyes of Daemon's growing faction. And so the stage was set. Daemon armed with Blackfyre, fueled by ambition and the adulation of many, the bitter urgings of men like Bittersteel and Gorman Peak, and nursing personal grievances, began his slow, inexorable march towards rebellion. His path would irrevocably diverge from that of his half-brother, the king, and perhaps also from a brother Brynden, who may have watched his descent with a sorrow only matched by his resolve to stop him. The marriage of Princess Daenerys to Meryn Martell was a profound blow to Daemon, likely serving as a critical catalyst, convincing him that Daemon's priorities lay with Dorne rather than with what Daemon perceived as true Targaryen interest or even familial affection. This, combined with years of Bittersteel's incitement and the flattery of disgruntled lords, pushed him towards open defiance. The First Blackfyre Rebellion, 196 AC. After nearly 12 years of Daemon II's reign, Daemon declared his claim. Many great houses, particularly those resentful of Dornish influence, those who romanticized a more martial kingship, or those holding personal grudges, flocked to his Black Dragon banner. Aegor Bittersteel Rivers, Lord Gorman Peak, Sir Quentyn Fireball Ball, and many lords from the Reach, the Westerlands, and the Stormlands. Key loyalist, King Daemon II Targaryen, Brynden Bloodraven Rivers, Hand of the King during the rebellion's height, Prince Baelor Breakspear, Daemon's formidable heir, who played a crucial role before his own death at the tourney of Ashford, which some say was no accident, and fanned by Blackfyre flames, and Prince Maekar Targaryen, Daemon's capable younger son. The Battle of the Redgrass Field. The rebellion culminated here. Daemon fought like the warrior reborn, slaying prominent loyalists including Sir Arlen of Pennytree's former master, Lord Hayford, and Will Waynwood. For a time, his victory seemed assured, but Bloodraven, from the Weeping Ridge, unleashed the Raven's teeth. Arrows struck Daemon, then his twin sons Aegon and Aemon, as they shielded him. All three perished. Seeing Daemon fall, Bittersteel, in a charge of legendary fury, broke Bloodraven's lines and dueled his hated half-brother. Taking Bloodraven's eye. Retrieving Blackfyre, he fought his way out with Daemon's surviving sons. The tragic fallen hero. Daemon, more so now, can be seen as a figure caught not just by his father's games and his own pride, but also by the complex web of love, duty, and political machinations that defied Daemon II's court. With Daemon and his eldest son slain on the Redgrass field, the first Blackfyre Rebellion was brutally crushed. Westeros breathed a collective, blood-soaked sigh of relief, but the dream of a Blackfyre king, the potent idea that Daemon embodied, did not die with him. Aegor Bittersteel Rivers, his loyalty to Daemon absolute, and his hatred for Bloodraven and the Targaryen regime indescendant, he fled across the narrow sea to the free cities, taking with him Daemon's surviving sons and the sword Blackfyre. In exile, his resolve only hardened. In 212 AC, after years of serving with other sellsword companies, Bittersteel founded the Golden Company, a mercenary band composed largely of Westerosi knights, lords, and their descendants, men who had lost everything for the Blackfyre cause. Their official motto, "Our word is good as gold," but beneath it, an unspoken unbreakable vow, beneath the gold, the bitter steel, signifying their hidden purpose, to one day return to Westeros and place a Blackfyre on the Iron Throne. Aegor Bittersteel Rivers, early life. Born in 172 AC to King Aegon IV and his fifth mistress Barbara Bracken, his mother was later supplanted by Melissa Blackwood, Brynden Rivers' mother, igniting a fierce, lifelong enmity between Aegor and Brynden that transcended mere court rivalry into a blood feud. This personal amnesty profoundly shaped Westeros politics for decades. Like Daemon, Aegor was a natural warrior, though his style was perhaps more brutal and more direct than Daemon's almost artistic swordsmanship. He was known for his unyielding will, grim determination, and unforgiving nature that earned him the moniker Bittersteel. He saw himself as a pure warrior, despising Bloodraven's reliance on spies and sorcery. He likely received a standard martial education for a highborn bastard, focusing on combat and command. His true education came in the harsh realities of court intrigue, and later, the brutal world of Essosi mercenary life. Founder and first Captain General of the Golden Company, this is his monumental, enduring legacy. He forged a disparate, defeated group of exiles into arguably the most formidable, disciplined, and reliable sellsword company in the Free Cities, famous for never breaking a contract, until perhaps much later. Preserver of the Blackfyre cause. For nearly 40 years, from the end of the first Blackfyre Rebellion until his death, Bittersteel tirelessly worked to restore Daemon's line. He was the unyielding spine of the Blackfyre movement in exile, crowning Daemon's sons and grandsons. Beyond his famous duel with Bloodraven, he fought in countless battles across Essos. He died as he lived, fighting axe in hand during a skirmish with Tyrosi forces on the disputed lands in 241 AC, still dreaming of Westeros. Skulls of the Captains. It is said that Bittersteel commanded that upon his death, his own skull be dipped in gold and carried by the Golden Company as their standard, to be followed by the skulls of each succeeding Captain General, a grim reminder for their ultimate purpose, to one day see Westeros again, and avenge their losses. Bittersteel personifies both never forgiving his enemies and never forgetting his fallen king. The Golden Company become more than mercenaries. They were a government in exile, a military force with a singular dynastic goal. The entire purpose of the Golden Company was rooted in the memory of Daemon, the desire for vengeance, and the forging of a new identity as kingmakers of a lost cause. Part 4: Later Generations, Fading Hopes, and Desperate Measures. The Blackfyre threat, though diminished, resurfaced with Daemon I's sons, each carrying the heavy burden of their father's lost crown and Bittersteel's relentless ambition. The political climate in Westeros under Daemon II's successors provided occasional, though ultimately false, glimmers of hope for the exiles. Daemon II Blackfyre, early life. Son of the Pretender, third son of Daemon I Blackfyre and Rohan of Tyrosh, his elder twin brothers, Aegon and Aemon, were slain beside their father at the Redgrass Field, making Daemon II the heir to the Blackfyre claim in Bittersteel's eyes after their escape. Upbringing in exile. Raised primarily in Tyrosh under the watchful eye of Aegon Bittersteel Rivers, while Bittersteel undoubtedly tried to instill martial values, Daemon II's nature was markedly different from his father's. He developed a keen interest in prophecy, dreams, and the mystical arts, traits perhaps inherited from his mother's Tyroshi lineage or his Targaryen ancestry's connection to dragon dream. He was known to have prophetic dreams himself. He was also described as charming, witty, and capable of making friends easily, but he lacked the commanding presence and fierce martial spirit of his father or Bittersteel. He was more of a scholar and a dreamer than a soldier. Sources suggest that Bittersteel viewed Daemon with some disappointment, recognizing that he was not the warrior king his father had been. This likely influenced Bittersteel's decision to not commit the Golden Company to Daemon II's ill-fated venture. Daemon II notable accomplishments. Figurehead of the Second Blackfyre Rebellion. While perhaps not an accomplishment in the traditional sense, his willingness to be the face of this rebellion, however ill-conceived, kept the Blackfyre name in contention. He was the catalyst around whom malcontents gathered, the Dragon Egg Prophecy or Dream. He famously had a dream or premonition that a dragon would hatch at White Walls during the tourney hosted by Lord Ambrose Butterwell. This dream became a key piece of propaganda for the rebellion, lending it an air of magical destiny, even if it ultimately proved false or unfulfilled. Daemon II Blackfyre claims and wars. Targaryen circumstances and political climate. The reign of King Aerys I Targaryen, Daemon II's second son, who succeeded his father after Baelor Breakspear died from a tourney accident and Daemon II from the Great Spring Sickness, was one of neglect. Aerys was a scholar, more interested in ancient prophecies and books than in ruling. Real power lay with his hand, Brynden Bloodraven Rivers. The realm was also suffering from a severe drought and the devastating aftermath of the Great Spring Sickness in 209 AC, which had killed tens of thousands, including King Daemon II and Baelor Breakspear's sons. The widespread suffering and perceived weak leadership created an environment ripe for discontent. The Second Blackfyre Rebellion, 211 AC. This was less a full-scale war and more of a conspiracy hatched by ambitious and disgruntled Westerosi lords like Lord Gorman P, who had also supported Daemon I and Lord Ambrose Butterwell. They planned to use a grand tourney at Butterwell's castle White Walls as a pretext to gather supporters and crown Daemon II. The famed mystery knight Sir John the Fiddler was in fact Daemon II's incognito. Bittersteel's absence. Crucially, Aegor Bittersteel, perhaps sensing Daemon II's unsuitability for command or the plot's weakness, refused to bring the Golden Company from Essos to support this attempt. Bloodraven's intervention. The plot was meticulously uncovered by Bloodraven, whose network of spies, 1,000 eyes in one, was legendary. Bloodraven, acting decisively as Hand, marched on White Walls with a large army, effectively surrounding the conspirators. The promised dragon egg failed to hatch. The rebellion was quashed before it could truly ignite, with minimal bloodshed. Daemon II was captured. Aftermath. King Aerys I, or more likely Bloodraven, spared Daemon II's life, choosing to keep him as a hostage in the Red Keep to deter future Blackfyre attempts. Daemon II lived out his days as a captive, dying some years later. His capture, however, did little to deter Bittersteel. Themes of this era: hope against hope. The manipulation of a claimant by ambitious lords, the overwhelming power of state surveillance with Bloodraven, the contrast between a mystical claimant and a ruthlessly pragmatic hand. With Daemon II a captive, his poetic soul confined within the Red Keep's stone walls, Bittersteel's gaze, unwavering and hard as his namesake, fell upon Daemon I's fourth-born son, Haegon. If one son lacked fire, perhaps another could be forged in it. Haegon I Blackfyre, early life. The fourth son's burden. Born in exile after the Redgrass Field, Haegon's earliest memories would have been the whispers of his father's lost glory and his elder twin brother's heroic deaths. He would have seen his older brother Daemon II as a charming but ultimately unsuited figure for their cause, perhaps even a source of private frustration for the hard-bitten exiles. The weight of expectation on Haegon, therefore, must have been intense. He had to be a warrior like his father. The leader Daemon II was not. Bittersteel's crucible. His entire upbringing was a relentless preparation for war, orchestrated by Aegor Bittersteel. Imagine a childhood not to play, but of endless drills in the sweltering heat of Tyroshi courtyards, or the cramped decks of sellsword galleys. Every lesson, every story, every waking moment would have been infused with the Blackfyre's cause, the injustice of their exile, and the sacred duty to reclaim Westeros. Bittersteel, a man whose heart had seemingly turned to iron after the Redgrass Field, would have been a stern, unyielding mentor, tolerating no weakness, demanding absolute obedience and martial excellence. One can imagine Haegon, a boy longing perhaps for a moment's peace, constantly met with tales of his father's prowess with Blackfyre, or the treachery of Bloodraven. Life among exiles. He grew up surrounded by the Golden Company, men who had lost lands, titles, and kin. Their hopes, their bitterness, their yearning for home would have been a constant, suffocating presence. Westeros would have been a half-remembered dream for the older exiles, a mythical promised land for Haegon, painted in the heroic hues of his father's legend. Did he feel a connection to this land he never truly known, or was it simply an abstract concept, a prize to be won to validate his existence and the sacrifices of those around him? Personality forged in fire. Unlike the dreamy Daemon II, Haegon likely developed a stoic, dutiful personality. Perhaps less naturally charismatic than his father, he might have compensated with grim determination and a fierce loyalty to Bittersteel, the man who was both his guardian and his kingmaker. He may have been quieter, more watchful, absorbing the harsh lessons in exile. Did he ever question the endless cycle of rebellion? Or was he so thoroughly indoctrinated that the doubt was an alien concept? One can picture him a young man, of few words but possessing a simmering intensity, a Blackfyre dragon forged in the bitter steel of exile. Crowning in Tyrosh. Following Daemon II's capture in 211 AC, the ceremony where Bittersteel crowned Haegon as King Haegon I Blackfyre in Tyrosh would have been a somber, defiant affair. Not a joyous coronation, but a grim reaffirmation of their unending struggle. A heavy crown placed upon a young man's brow. Haegon I Blackfyre notable accomplishments. Securing the full backing of the Golden Company. Unlike his elder brother, Haegon commanded respect, or at least the obedience of Bittersteel and the full might of the Golden Company for his invasion. He was deemed worthy to carry Blackfyre into battle, launching the Third Blackfyre Rebellion in 219 AC. He successfully orchestrated and led an invasion of Westeros, managing the land forces and reignite the conflict, proving the Blackfyre threat was far from extinguished. King Aerys I still nominally reigned, but remained a scholarly recluse, largely disinterested in the practicalities of governance. Lord Brynden Bloodraven Rivers continued as a hand, his rule becoming increasingly feared and resented by some for its ruthlessness and pervasive spy network. The realm was still recovering from the Great Spring Sickness and enduring a harsh drought, fostering instability and discontent that Bittersteel aimed to exploit. The Third Blackfyre Rebellion, 219 AC. 8 years after Daemon II's failure at White Walls, Hagen I Blackfyre, now a young man, landed in Westeros. With him was the indomitable Aegor Bittersteel, the Sword Blackfyre, and the full host of the Golden Company. They aimed to be the spark that would ignite a fresh wave of support from lords disillusioned with Aerys' reign and Bloodraven's iron fist. Loyalist responses in key battles. The rebellion was met by Targaryen loyalists. Prince Maekar Targaryen, Aerys I's capable and martial younger brother and heir, took a leading role in the loyalist command. Maekar's sons also played significant parts. The volatile and cruel Aerion Brightflame Targaryen, and the younger, more compassionate Aegon Egg Targaryen, the future King Aegon V, then squire to Sir Duncan the Tall. Lord Bloodraven, ever vigilant, also led forces against the rebels. While no single climactic battle like the Redgrass Field is explicitly detailed for this rebellion, it involved a series of engagements and maneuvering. Defeat in Hagen's death. The rebellion ultimately faltered against the organized loyalist resistance. In the final battle of the war, the specific name for the battle is not recorded, but it was decisive, Hagen I Blackfyre fought bravely but was defeated and captured. It is widely reported and believed that he was treacherously executed after surrendering, a dishonorable act that would further embitter the Blackfyre loyalists and stain the Targaryen victory. Aegor Bittersteel was also captured in the same battle, a significant blow to the Blackfyres. He was condemned to take the Black and join the Night's Watch. However, while en route to Eastwatch by the Sea, the ship carrying him was intercepted by his loyal Golden Company men, and he was freed, escaping back to Tyrosh to plot anew. His hatred for the Targaryens and Bloodraven now mingled with a fresh desire to avenge Aegon's ignoble death. Themes of this era: the diminishing returns of rebellion, the implacable, almost fanatical resolve of Bittersteel, the increasing brutality and moral ambiguity in the conflict, highlighted by Hagen's reputed execution. The Blackfyre cause seemed increasingly desperate, yet its adherents clung to hope, even attempting a peaceful approach. Aenys Blackfyre, early life, obscure origins, likely the fifth son of Daemon I Blackfyre, or possibly a son of one of Daemon's older sons who died at the Redgrass Field. His exact placement in the family tree is less clear than his predecessors. Life in exile. He lived his entire life in exile, likely in Tyrosh or Myr, under the shadow of the Blackfyre defeats and the ever-watchful eye of Bittersteel and the Golden Company. He would have been raised on tales of his grandfather or father's glory and the injustices suffered by his house. Details of his specific education or his personality are scarce, but he was evidently literate and capable of diplomacy, as shown by his appeal to the Great Council. Aenys Blackfyre notable accomplishments: attempting a peaceful claim via the Great Council, 233 AC. In a departure from previous rebellions, Aenys sought to present his claim to the Iron Throne peacefully and legitimately before the assembled lords of Westeros. Aenys Blackfyre, claims and wars, or lack thereof. Targaryen circumstances and political climate. King Maekar I, father of Aegon V, died in 233 AC, battling a rebellious lord, with his eldest son Daemon the Drunken dead from a pox, and his second son Aerion Brightflame also dead from drinking wildfire. The succession was unclear.
A great council was called to choose the next king from among Maekar's remaining descendants and from among other claimants as well. This was a moment of potential opportunity for any claimant. From his exile in Tyrosh, Aenys Blackfyre wrote to the Great Council, requesting safe passage to King's Landing to present his claim for the Iron Throne, Bloodraven's treachery. The hand of the King Lord Bloodraven Rivers, who had ruthlessly suppressed 2 Blackfyre rebellions, granted Aenys safe conduct in the King's name. Execution. However, upon Aenys' arrival in King's Landing, Bloodraven reneged on his promise. He had Aenys seized and swiftly executed, arguing that his very presence and claim were inherently treasonous and a threat to the realm's stability. Aftermath. This blatant act of treachery shocked many lords at the Great Council, even those loyal to the Targaryens. The newly crowned King Aegon V, Aeg Targaryen, known for his sense of justice, was appalled. One of his first acts as king was to have Bloodraven arrested for murder and treason. Bloodraven was given a choice between execution or taking the Black. He chose the Night's Watch, taking with him 200 men, many from the Raven's Teeth, and eventually rising to Lord Commander. Themes of this era: the illusion of peaceful resolution, the depths of Bloodraven's commitment to eradicating the Blackfyre threat, even through dishonor, the moral cost of maintaining power, the integrity of the newly crowned Aegon V. Bloodraven's exile to the Wall may have removed one Blackfyre nemesis, but the Blackfyre pretenders and the ancient unyielding Bittersteel were not yet done. The torch passed to Haegon's son, another Daemon. Daemon III Blackfyre, early life. Grandson of a slain king, born in exile likely in Tyrosh, Daemon III would have been the son of Haegon I Blackfyre, who was allegedly executed after surrendering. His entire life would have been steeped in this particular bitterness, the story of his father's martyrdom, a core tenet of his upbringing. He was the grandson of the first Daemon, the Great Pretender, but also the son of a failed one. Bittersteel's last protege. He was groomed for kingship by an Aegor Bittersteel now well into old age, a man who had seen claimant after claimant fall. One can only imagine Bittersteel, his body failing but his will strong as ever, pouring all his remaining energy, all his decades of accumulated hatred and longing, into this last male heir of Haegon's line. The lessons would have been harsh, the expectations immense. Did Daemon III feel the crushing weight of being Bittersteel's final desperate hope? Was he instilled with a fanatical belief or a sense of doomed obligation, a childhood of ghosts and steel? His playmates would have been the sons of exiles, his lullabies the tales of the Redgrass Field and Wendwater Bridge. The Golden Company, with its aging veterans and younger recruits born in Essos, would have been his entire world. He might have felt a profound disconnect from the Westeros he was supposed to rule, a land only known through Bittersteel's fierce memories and the company's mournful song. Perhaps he was more impulsive than his father, driven by a need to prove himself worthy of the sacrifices made, or perhaps more melancholic, aware of the long odds. The crown of a dying dream. When Bittersteel crowned him King Daemon III, it would have been an act more of desperate faith than of confident assertion. The reasons were dwindling, the supporters in Westeros fewer with each passing year. This Daemon was likely aware he was leading a long shot, perhaps even a forlorn hope. Daemon III Blackfyre, notable accomplishments. Securing continued Golden Company support. He managed to retain the loyalty of the Golden Company, even with an aging Bittersteel, for one more invasion attempt, leading the 4th Blackfyre Rebellion, 236 AC. He successfully landed forces in Westeros, demonstrating the continued, albeit diminished threat posed by the Blackfyre claim and the Golden Company. Daemon III Blackfyre, claims and wars. Targaryen circumstances and political climate. King Aegon V, Aeg Targaryen, had been on the throne for only 3 years. Aegon V was a dedicated reformer, striving to improve the lives of the common people, often clashing with the powerful nobility who resisted his attempts to curtail their privileges. This created significant unrest and animosity among certain lords, a situation Bittersteel and Daemon III had hoped would translate into active support for their cause. The Fourth Blackfyre Rebellion, 236 AC. Aegor Bittersteel, now an old man, but his spirit unbroken, launched his fourth major invasion attempt. Daemon III Blackfyre, carrying the hopes of the exiles, landed at Massey's Hook with the Golden Company. Lack of Westerosi support. Despite Aegon V's struggles with some of their nobility, the expected widespread support for Daemon III failed to materialize. Many lords were wary after decades of failed rebellions, and Aegon V, despite his controversial reforms, was not widely seen as a tyrant. The Targaryen regime was more stable than Bittersteel perhaps anticipated. The Battle of Wendwater Bridge. The decisive engagement of this rebellion was the Battle of Wendwater Bridge. Here, the Blackfyre forces were met by a royalist army, nominally led by King Aegon V, though the true hero of the day was the Lord Commander of his Kingsguard, Sir Duncan the Tall. In the fighting, Daemon III Blackfyre was slain by Sir Duncan. Bittersteel's final retreat. Witnessing the death of yet another Blackfyre king he had crowned and championed, Aegor Bittersteel, his dreams shattered once more, was forced to lead the defeated remnants of the Golden Company back to Essos. He would die a few years later in 241 AC, in a pointless skirmish in the disputed lands, never having set foot in Westeros as a conqueror. His passing marked the end of an era for the Blackfyre cause. Themes of this era: the sheer, almost superhuman tenacity of Bittersteel even in extreme old age, the dwindling support and resources for the Blackfyre cause, the tragic cycle of sons dying for their father's ambitions, the emergence of new Targaryen-era heroes like Sir Duncan the Tall. Part 5. The final spark, the War of the Ninepenny Kings. With Bittersteel's death and the direct mailed line of Daemon I dwindling, the Blackfyre cause seemed truly moribund. Yet, one final terrible eruption was to come, embodied by a figure of nightmarish legend, Measter the Monstrous. Measter's first Blackfyre, Measter the Monstrous, early life. The tested lineage. His exact parentage within the Blackfyre line is somewhat debated amongst Maesters, but he was undeniably a descendant of Daemon I Blackfyre. He was likely a grandson or a great-grandson, possibly through the female line that married back into the male Blackfyre cadet branch, or the son of a lesser-known Blackfyre exile. Brutal rise to power. He grew up within the hard and increasingly desperate environment of the Golden Company in Essos. He gained command not through inheritance or acclaim, but through brutal kinslaying. He supposedly killed his own cousin, another Daemon Blackfyre, perhaps the son of Aenys, sometimes referred to the fans as Daemon IV, in a savage dispute for captaincy of the Golden Company, allegedly by twisting his head until it tore from his shoulders. Physical deformity and reputation. Measter was notorious for his immense physical strength and savage brutality. He was also marked by a shocking physical deformity, a second, smaller malformed head growing out of his neck. This parasitic twin was said to whisper to him, perhaps driving his rages. This grotesque appearance earned him the epithet, Measter the Monstrous. His education was likely one of violence and survival within the cutthroat world of sellswords. Measter the Blackfyre notable accomplishments. Violent seizure of Golden Company command. His kinslaying and sheer ferocity cowed any rivals and cemented his leadership over the sellswords. Key figure in the Band of Nine. He was instrumental in forging the Band of Nine, a dangerous alliance of pirates, corsairs, sellsword captains, and ambitious would-be monarchs from the free cities and the disputed lands. Each member had their own territorial ambitions, Measter I, however, was aiming for the grandest prize, the Iron Throne. Measter I Blackfyre, Claims and Wars, Targaryen Circumstances and Political Climate. King Jaehaerys II Targaryen, Aegon V's son and father to Aerys II, the Mad King, was on the throne. Aegon V and his eldest son, Duncan the Small, had perished in the tragedy of Summerhall in 253 AC. Jaehaerys was a capable but less physically robust king who had been forced by his father to break his own love match. The realm was still recovering from Summerhall. The Band of Nine saw Westeros as vulnerable. War of the Ninepenny Kings, 260 AC. This was the fifth and final recognized Blackfyre Rebellion, though it was part of a larger, multi-front conflict initiated by the Band of Nine. The Alliance's plan. The Band of Nine conquered the disputed lands in the free city of Tyrosh, establishing it as their base. Their next objective was the invasion of the Stepstones, the strategic island chain that, if controlled, would allow them to choke off trade to Westeros and serve as a launching pad for Melis's invasion. Westerosi response. King Jaehaerys II, despite his delicate health, responded decisively. He dispatched a large Westerosi host to the Stepstones to confront the invaders, commanded by prominent lords like Lord Ormond Baratheon, who served as hand and commander of the royal army, and Gerald Lannister. Many young knights who would later become famous, such as Barristan Selmy, Brynden Blackfish Tully, and Steffon Baratheon, earned their spurs in this war. The fall of Melis. The fighting in the Stepstones was fierce and lasted for some time. Melis the Monstrous, a terrifying figure on the battlefield, carved a bloody path through the Westerosi forces. The war culminated when Melis was confronted and slain in single combat by a young, courageous knight from the Stormlands, Sir Barristan Selmy, who cut down the Pretender. With Melis's death, the heart went out of the Band of Nine's Westerosi ambitions, and the invasion faltered. More importantly, the male line of House Blackfyre was definitely extinguished. Themes of this era, the grotesque and the desperate end of a once proud, though rebellious, lineage, the final bloody victory of the Targaryens over their Shadowkin, the forging of new heroes. Barristan Selmy's legend begins here. The dangers underestimating external threats born from internal instability. Melis's monstrousness pushes him into more fantastical territory, but the archetype of the brutal, ambitious mercenary captain is very real. Part 6. Legacy and the Whispers of Return. With Melis the Monstrous dead on the Stepstones, his second head silenced forever, House Blackfyre was, the bloody saga spanning 5 generations, costing hundreds of thousands of lives, seemed finally at an end. The Red Dragon had at last fully consumed its black shadow. Or had it? The Golden Company, though defeated in their primary objective, endured. They returned to Westeros, their reputation for ferocity intact, their contract record mostly unbroken, and whispers, mere embers at first, began to circulate decades later, fanned by shadowy figures in shadowy corners of the world. Whispers of a new claimant, perhaps descended from the female line of House Blackfyre, or perhaps something far more cunning and deceptive. The female line, a lingering question. While the male line of House Blackfyre died with Melis the Monstrous, Daemon I Blackfyre had daughters, and his sons may have had daughters too. These female Blackfyres could have been married, their descendants perhaps living in obscurity in Essos. This is a crucial loophole for any potential future Blackfyre claim. Calla Blackfyre, daughter of Daemon I, married Aegor Bittersteel Rivers. While they had no known issue, other daughters or granddaughters could have perpetuated the line. The Golden Company's enduring purpose. The Golden Company's famous motto, "Our word is good as gold," and the reputation for never breaking a contract became legendary. Yet, their founding charter, their very soul, was dedicated to placing a Blackfyre on the Iron Throne. It said Bittersteel, on his deathbed, charged his successors to continue this quest. The skulls of their captains, dipped in gold, served as a constant reminder. The Fagan theory. In the current timeline of A Song of Ice and Fire, a young man known as Young Griff has emerged, claiming to be Aegon Targaryen, the supposedly murdered son of Prince Rhaegar and Elia Martell. He is backed by the Golden Company, who significantly broke a lucrative contract with Myr to support his invasion of Westeros. Many readers theorize that young Griff is not actually Aegon Targaryen, but rather a Blackfyre descendant, likely through the female line, possibly tracing his lineage back to Sarah, the wife of Valyria Mopatis, young Griff's benefactor. Sarah was said to be of Valyrian descent from Lys, and some speculate she was from a hidden Blackfyre branch. If true, this would be the ultimate irony, a Blackfyre meticulously groomed and presented as a true Targaryen, potentially succeeding where generations of open Blackfyre Rebellion had failed. Plot would involve master manipulators like Varys and Illyria playing the long game. Themes of Fagan is a Blackfyre. The ultimate deception, hidden identities and masquerades. The past is never truly dead, but returning in new guises. The sins of the father, or great-great-grandfather, revisited, and the stunning irony of a Blackfyre potentially winning the throne by pretending to be the very thing their ancestors fought to overthrow. The Mummer's Dragon, as Daenerys is warned. The legacy of House Blackfyre is a stark, bloody testament to the destructive power of unchecked ambition, the potency of grievance, and the enduring, intoxicating allure of the crown. For 5 generations, they were the dark mirror to House Targaryen, a constant, violent reminder of Aegon the Unworthy's catastrophic folly. Their rebellions tore Westeros apart, forged heroes and villains in their crucible, and left deep scars upon the land and its people. Scars that, even now, as new pretenders rise and old swords are unsheathed, might not have fully healed. The Black Dragon may have fallen many times, but its shadow, and the ideas it represented, lingers still. A potent, cautionary lesson in how easily a house and a realm divided against itself can fall. Overall themes of House Blackfyre. The eternal question, what makes a king? Birth, ability, popular support, the gift of a symbolic sword, cycle of violence and vengeance. Each rebellion, each act of suppression, each betrayal sowed bitter seeds for future conflict, and grudges became heirlooms. The burden of past and familial legacy. Descendants found themselves locked into ancestral feuds, duty-bound to pursue claims that they may have not personally initiated, but could not escape. Loyalty, extreme and misplaced, versus betrayal, pragmatic and personal. Figures like Bittersteel embody unwavering, almost fanatical loyalty. Figures like Bloodraven represent ruthless pragmatism, sometimes crossing into betrayal for what they saw was the greater good. And figures like Gorman Peak represent self-serving ambition masquerading as loyalty. The power of narrative, symbolism, and propaganda. The Sword Blackfyre, the rumors about Daemon II's parentage, Daemon I's godlike image, Daemon II's dragon dream, all were potent tools used to gather support and legitimize the rebellion. The corrosive effect of civil war. Repeated rebellions drained the realm of resources, manpower, and stability, weakening it against other threats and fostering a climate of suspicion and fear. What do you believe? Was Daemon Blackfyre a righteous hero, the rightful king betrayed by circumstance, or a vainglorious traitor who plunged the realm into needless war? Could the whispers of a Blackfyre return and whatever guise hold true? Let us know your theories and thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the shadowed corners of Westerosi history, please like this video, subscribe for more lore from the world of Ice and Fire, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss our next journey. Until next time, Valar Doharas.